Welcome into Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here. Thanks for joining us as we catch up to speed on the latest with Zay Flowers as he is under investigation from police after an alleged domestic assault. We'll tell you more about it in just a moment. And what we're going to do on this show is preparing for the worst. If Zay Flowers cannot play for whatever reason this season, we are going to go through a list of potential replacement options for the Ravens to look at if that were to be the case. Let's go ahead and set the scene for you here and get you the latest on Flowers. Baltimore County PD is investigating an alleged domestic assault. The investigation also includes a police report from Action, Massachusetts as well. So this goes beyond state lines with what is going on with this case. And if you recall, Zay Flowers played at Boston College, so spent some time in that area previously. The alleged assault occurred in Owings Mills, Maryland on January 21st. And it is very important to know at this time, the timing of this recording, Flowers has not been charged with a crime of any kind at this point. Could that change? Maybe so down the line. But at this moment, no charges have been filed at this point. And the date that you see on your screen, January 21st, the significance to that is what happened a week following. Flowers still played in the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs a week after the police report occurred. So with that said, that's where everything stands right now. When we get more information in everything that's going on here, we'll continue to follow this story, but that's where things stand, at least at the moment right now. Coming up next, we will break down the replacement options for Zay Flowers if he can't play. But in the meantime, want to make sure you subscribe to Ravens Rundown. All this week, we're in a sub-battle with our Browns channel, all month long, actually. Browns report with a little bit of an edge right now. They've had 25 new subscribers. We're at 15 new subscribers. We're telling you everything that goes on with your Ravens throughout the entire offseason. News, rumors, trades, free agency, the draft, and more. We'll continue to update you on what's going on with the Zay Flowers situation as well. Subscribe now for free for the latest happenings on your favorite team. We got you covered. So now if for whatever reason, if Zay Flowers cannot play next year, if this investigation goes sour, then what could the Ravens do to potentially replace him if he can't give it a go? On today's show, we're going to go over 5 potential names. And quite frankly, the Baltimore Ravens, whether Zay Flowers is there or not, they are going to need more wide receiver help anyway in 2024 with OBJ as a free agent, Nelson Aguilar as a free agent, and Rashad Bateman coming off a disappointing 2023. Let's start with Tee Higgins. He is going to be the biggest prize of all this offseason. And the Cincinnati Bengals, to put it simply, cannot afford to keep Tee Higgins. This would be the best option for the Ravens of young receivers with a high ceiling to be a number one receiver. Tee Higgins would be that guy. But it's also the most unlikely option for a number of reasons. One, although it's going to be hard for the Bengals to try to keep Tee Higgins, they're going to do whatever they can to at least try to keep him, whether that's a potential franchise tag or trying to come up with a deal of some sort to keep him around. They will at least try. And then from there, you're looking at, okay, maybe it's a franchise tag and trade. Well, you don't want to trade him within the division. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through, not to mention how expensive he would be. But if you can find a way, then it'd be great to have Tee Higgins. Did have a down year this past season, but he was banged up a bit. Still managed 42 catches, 656 yards, 5 touchdowns. And you get away from having to share receptions with Ja'Marr Chase. Who knows how good Tee Higgins could potentially be on another team where he was the top receiver. Should the Ravens add Tee Higgins? What do you think? Y for yes, N for no. Our pinned comment today. Weigh in. Tell us what you think. Next up, we find Mike Evans, the star receiver of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and had another fantastic season again in 2023. Despite a new quarterback playing with Baker Mayfield compared to when he was with Tom Brady, he still managed to have his 10th straight season with 1,000 receiving yards. He's great, no question about it, but Mike Evans is no spring chicken anymore. The question that you have to ask, although he has been consistent throughout this stretch of the past 10 seasons, the most consistent receiver in the league. How long will it last? Last year, 79 catches, nearly 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns. Mike Evans was great. But at some point, it's going to end eventually. And Mike Evans is looking for a long-term deal, looking to be paid a lot of money. If you're the Ravens, do you want to extend that olive branch to Mike Evans and invest when his better days eventually could catch up with him? We'll see. Today's show is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time, the place to go for the best seats for the lowest prices guaranteed. Whether you're looking for tickets for sporting events, concerts, theater productions, comedy shows, and more, Game Time has got you covered. We tell you all the time here on the channel about our deal where we offer you $20 off when you use the promo code RAVENSCHAT on your first purchase. Well, get this, folks. We got more than just that this week. If you're headed out to Vegas for the big game against the Chiefs and the Niners, you're in luck because we are also offering $100 off for tickets to the big game. And you don't have to be a first-time user either. Use promo code VEGAS100, and you can start saving today. And you could combine that with the Ravens Chat promo code if you're a first-time user and save $120 on tickets to the big game. Download Game Time today. Terms and conditions do apply. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today, and you'll be glad you did. Start saving on tickets today. A name very familiar to Baltimore Ravens fans, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown of the Arizona Cardinals, who is set to hit free agency, is another option and could potentially make a return to Baltimore. Now, I look at Hollywood Brown, and he isn't a bad player at all. And in fact, I think most Ravens fans would agree to that. The last season he was in Baltimore had a 1,000-yard receiving year. But even with that said, I think that it's fair to say that the Ravens, when they drafted Marquise Brown, he isn't the player they thought they were drafting, which was one of the reasons why they moved on from him, is that the 1,000-yard season that he had a few years ago in Baltimore, that was kind of his ceiling of sorts. He's dealt with a number of injuries. He's never put up those numbers again. So although Marquise Brown is a good player, he's never going to be a great receiver in the National Football League. That's the reality of it. So if you are going to pay the money to bring in Marquise Brown and bring him back to Baltimore potentially, you were accepting the fact that, hey, he's not really that first-round talent. He's a good player, but he's not a great player. Next on the list, let's talk about a couple draft options potentially. Let's start with Adonai Mitchell, the wide receiver from the University of Texas. And Adonai Mitchell was fantastic with the Texas Longhorns this past season. He should be available when the Ravens pick at 30, should be in that range of sorts. I like Mitchell a lot. He's different from Zay Flowers, though. If we're talking about replacing Zay Flowers, then he's got something completely different to offer in the game that he plays. He is more of a deep threat, downfield type, big play receiver compared to Zay Flowers, who's more of a possession receiver of sorts. And honestly, that's okay. We saw from Adonai Mitchell this past year with the University of Texas, had nearly 900 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns. His yards per catch was fantastic. He would be a different element for this Ravens offense. And if Zay Flowers is back, I still like the idea of Adonai Mitchell to be kind of a thunder and lightning type thing, to do something different from Zay Flowers to bring to that receiving game. Watch out for Adonai Mitchell. He's going to be a guy we talk about for the next several weeks leading up to the draft. What about Adonai Mitchell? Should the Ravens draft him? Let us know what you think. D for draft, P for pass, if you'd like to see him in Baltimore or not. Last on our list, another draft option is Keon Coleman, the wide receiver from the Florida State Seminoles. Began his career with Michigan State and came to Florida State this year where the Seminoles had an undefeated season but still missed out on the college football playoff, and he was a huge part of that offense. Now, his statistics, honestly, were not that flashy, if we're going to be frank. Didn't necessarily jump out the page of what he did at Florida State this year, but don't let that fool you. He's still got the ability to dominate and take over a game. We saw that week one against the LSU Tigers this past year in the Camping World kickoff game in Orlando, where you had all those great LSU receivers, right, with Malik Neighbors and Thomas, and, the quarterback play was terrific, right, with Daniels and Travis. And, I mean, I could even extend it to the defense with Jared Verse. You know who the best player in the field was that day? Keon Coleman was, with a multi-touchdown game. He showed that ability that he can take over and he can be that guy. And so, while this year he had just 658 yards, still had 11 touchdowns. He's a touchdown machine. I like Keon Coleman a lot, and I would think there's a good chance he's available when the Ravens pick at 30. For the latest happenings in your Baltimore Ravens, subscribe now for free. We'll keep you posted what's going on with Zay Flowers and also count you down to everything you need to know on your Baltimore Ravens leading up to the draft and free agency and the trade market and more. Subscribe now for free, and we'll see you next time.